You and your family are going broke right now, and you don't even know it.
Mr. Speaker, this chart shows the amount of money that we have in circulation in dollars. And as you can see, that up until recently, there wasn't a great deal of increase in the amount of money in circulation. But just in the last few years, last couple of years, it has shot straight up. That up until recently, there wasn't a great deal of increase in the amount of money in circulation. But just in the last few years, last couple of years, it has shot straight up. Straight up. That means that we're seeing an inflationary trend unparalleled in American history, but that's not the end of it. People need to know that their money is going to buy a lot less if we continue down the road we're on. Now,
what people need to understand is the excess printing of the United States currency is just another tax on the American people. It takes the value of the dollars that they have and makes them worth less in the long run. Meanwhile, you're still making roughly the same amount of money, yet the prices for everything from gas to milk are going up constantly, when in fact nothing is really going up in price. It's the dollar's actual value that's been dropping and not prices going up.
But the fact of the matter is, the Treasury Department of the United States, in my opinion, and I'm very sure this is going to happen, they're going to have to print more money. Billions and billions of dollars in additional money. And when they put that into circulation, the law of supply and demand is going to make it very clear that everything that we buy is going to cost a heck of a lot more. Now, if you have $100 and 100 quarts of milk, a quart of milk would cost $1. But if you triple the money supply and you have $300 and a quart of and 100 quarts of milk, it's going to cost $3 for a quart of milk. And that's the way inflation works. And this is a very clear signal that our money supply is going up like a rocket right now.
Other times it goes much faster. Take, for instance, right here, in September of 1923, in a German inflation, 10 million marks would buy a loaf of bread. But it wasn't too long after that, a few weeks later, it took, it took 50 million marks to buy it, and then a month later it took 500 million, and of course the whole thing fell apart. So nobody should be reassured because they don't see a lot of price inflation going on right now. That what they should be looking at is what the Federal Reserve is doing, printing money like crazy, and the day that we have to dread is the day the people lose confidence, or the world lose confidence in the dollar, because that's when prices will soar, interest rates will go up, and then we will be forced into devising another monetary system.
Pump an extra $1 trillion into the U.S. financial system by purchasing Treasury bonds and mortgage securities. Now, the idea, of course, is to encourage economic activity by lowering interest rates, including those on home loans. While this may bring a short-term jolt, many critics say that printing money, vast amount of money, out of thin air will bring disastrous consequences. More specifically, hyperinflation and the plunge of the U.S. dollar. Many experts have gone on record saying that the U.S. monetary policy has passed the point of no return when it comes to printing money. So Americans eventually one day may have a stash of cash at home, but if you go to a store and bread costs $10, $20, what is your money really worth? And if anybody has any doubts over the severity of hyperinflation, look to Germany in the early 1920s. At that point, paper currency had lost so much value that people were literally burning it in furnaces to stay warm. The problem and severity of this situation cannot be underestimated. What people in Washington are thinking right now, no one knows.
The Great War was over. On the 11th of November 1918, an armistice had been signed. In Britain and France, the survivors celebrated victory, the return of peace, and the end of bloodshed. They'd left behind the nightmare lands of death and destruction created by 4 years of war. The cost of those years was almost beyond imagination, but somehow, somewhere, that cost would have to be counted. idea that Germany should be let off lightly would have seemed sheer madness to Frenchmen who'd seen the effects of the German war machine on their own country. In order that scenes like this could never happen again, they wanted a Germany stripped of her wealth and armed forces. Her fortifications were to be destroyed. Her army was to be reduced to 100,000 men. No air force, no submarines, and to accept blame for starting the war and pay reparations. The rebuilding of war-damaged France was costing the country a great deal of money. Germany was already in a bitter mood. Might not reparations only make things worse? But these arguments didn't impress the Allies, who fixed a sum of £6,600 million for the Germans to pay. For some time, the value of the mark had been dropping. As the value of the notes decreased, so the amount of notes needed to buy things grew. Banks became more and more hard-pressed to meet the ever-increasing demand for paper money. Without customers, suitcases replaced wallets. To meet this crisis and pay the strikers in the Ruhr, the government simply printed more money. And as it lost its value, so it cost more and more to pay wages, to buy food. Hundreds of thousands. Millions, whatever figure was printed on the notes, really meant nothing. The German mark was worthless. As in a fearful dream, people's life savings were blown away like leaves in a gale.
Cost a heck of a lot more. Now, if you have $100 and 100 quarts of milk, a quart of milk would cost $1. But if you triple the money supply and you have $300 and a quart of and 100 quarts of milk, it's going to cost $3 for a quart of milk. And that's the way inflation works. And this is a very clear signal that our money supply is going up like a rocket right now. And Secretary Geithner is talking about $2 trillion more in addition to what they're talking about in the supplemental. The supplemental is over $800 billion, almost another $1 trillion. The omnibus spending bill, which we're going to be passing, is $410 billion, and there's a $100 billion supplemental. Now think about that. Where is all that money going to come from? You can't give people something unless you take it away as far as taxes are concerned. So we can't tax people that much. And so what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to inflate the money supply. And they are going to do it. The manipulation of our money supply is something that everybody in this country ought to be concerned about. They really should be concerned about it, because the value of the money you have in the bank, and a lot of people have already lost a ton in the stock market, but the value of the money that you have in the bank and under the mattress or wherever you keep your money is going to be devalued dramatically because they're going to print so much more money. So there'll be trillions of dollars more chasing the same amount of fewer goods and services. And everybody in America ought to be saying that we got to put a hammer on the spending and put a hammer on these big policies that we're coming up with right now. I don't think people realize, honestly. I understand we have economic problems, but this is going to put our kids, our grandkids, and our posterity in one heck of a situation, because they're either going to be taxed to the limit or way above the limit, or they're going to have to deal with an inflationary spiral that means that the amount of money they have won't amount to anything. In Zimbabwe right now, that one piece of currency is worth about 12 million of their former currencies. So they just put more zeros on it. And when people go to buy bread or food or anything else over there, they have to take buckets of money. That happened in post-World War II Germany. And we're going to do it here right in the United States if we don't get controlled spending. And this is real, folks. This isn't baloney. Geithner said today he may have to monetize up to $1 trillion or get loans for $1 trillion or $2 trillion. $410 billion in the omnibus, $800+ billion in the stimulus, $100 billion in the supplemental. I mean, where's this money going to come from? Where's it going to come from? So I'd just like to say, Mr. Speaker, to my colleagues and the American people, this ain't baloney. This is real dollars and cents. This is the future of our kids, our grandkids, and the future of our system of government in the United States of America. We must not let this happen. We must not let this happen.
Gentleman's time has expired.
proper currency, government simply cannot finance wars. Why? Because they'd have to come clean to the people and say, oh, if we want to invade country X, it's in effect going to cost you a marginal tax rate of 75%. People would quite literally burst out into laughter and say, this is patently absurd what you propose to do. Whereas under a central banking system, you can basically foist those debts upon your children. You can debase the currency in such a way that people can't see it from day to day.